Welcome back to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain, and I have our special guest, Paul from Dfinity, joining us again for some price analysis on some of your suggestions, as well as some of the cryptos we want to review today. And so Paul's been doing this for over 30 years, and I say price analysis over technical analysis. He can tell you the difference, and he often does. We like to record this once a week and share with you Paul's analysis. Now, his background in crypto isn't that long, but it doesn't matter because human behavior is what drives charts going up and going down, and the same principles that apply in charting stocks apply to crypto as well. And it's really nice. It's a very unique approach to mine because I'm a fundamental analyst, and with our goal of having the most educated audience in crypto, well, this ties right in and bringing you an outside expert that has a different point of view than mine that can really balance my view so that you can get a more informed perspective so you can make your own decisions. So with that said, welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. We're so glad to have you, and let's bring on our special guest, Paul from Dfinity.
Hi everybody, great to be here. Always look forward to hearing what Crypto Rain's got to say and have a look at your suggestions.
We're thankful for you joining us. We really appreciate Dfinity lending you to us. I love your analysis personally, and I've been learning a lot each week as we do these. So I probably learn as much as my audience does, maybe even more, because I'm hungry for this. I did spend some time during the crypto winter learning more about technical analysis, but your view is slightly different, and I love that because it's informing my view. So thank you for joining us.
No, it's great. It's great to be here. It's I always feel like I'm learning along the way anyway. Just because every situation you see a repeat of something, but it's also slightly different. So that's why you can never say anything 100% because there's always different elements to a chart, to a situation like zero interest rates or a new product like Bitcoin and all that sort of stuff. But as you quite rightly say at the top of the show, human behavior does repeat itself, so we can look for those repeating patterns, and that's what I'm looking for in the market. I want to see whether investors are bullish, whether they're bearish, or whether they're unsure, and that means that sometimes I'm really sure and sometimes I'm not, and I just have to tell you, when those times are. So the great thing about all these cryptocurrencies is there's lots of them, so if something's not moving in the ones that you're following, you can always find something that is, especially with the correction that we're seeing at the moment in Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yeah, exactly. And we're in a larger bullish trend. So even when you're having a massive correction on a lot of things, something is always pumping out there. So absolutely. If it's all right, let's start with the majors, and then we'll go through some of our viewer picks. Now, the way we've been running this is that our viewers have been picking, and they put down in the comment section below what they want us to review next time. We will be incorporating Paul into our live streams in the coming weeks. In fact, D-Money is here on DJ doing this for you so that we can, and for us all, so that we can practice getting this ready to incorporate Paul right into our live streams.
That'll be a lot of fun. It will be live, guys. So expect fun and games. Let's jump into the majors, like you say. I'm quickly just going to show you a chart of government bond yields, 10-year yields. Now, why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because US interest rates in what's called the long end, which is where interest rates are used for mortgages and things like that, has been moving up. There's this big level here at 1.774. And if it takes that out, then I think yields could go up a bit more, which could be a little bit of a drag on other assets. So it could push other assets down. At the moment, the dollar is being pushed up as well. I'll just quickly show you. This is the dollar index. So we've seen a technical pattern that was a consolidation and it's exploded higher. So there has been a big move in the dollar, and if this extends, it could put a bit of pressure on. And I wasn't sure whether this would affect Bitcoin and Ethereum because it hadn't done before, but the move wasn't as strong as this in the dollar. And so I'm showing you this because now we are seeing a bit of a correction in the Bitcoin and Ethereum charts. I'm wondering,
real quick, can you explain to us what that last chart was?
Yeah, absolutely.
What it means related to the dollar.
Yeah. So sure. So what that is, let me just find it again. It is what's called the dollar index. So this is the dollar against a basket of currencies. So so if we look at if I show you the euro against the US dollar,
Yes.
it looks like the inverse. So the euro is going down, the dollar is going up. The biggest weighting of it, so it's a bit like a share index except for currencies. So the biggest weighting within that is the euro, and therefore
So when the euro tanked, that means the dollar has become relatively stronger than the euro.
absolutely. So if I was to just, there's a way of invert the scale. Here we go. Look, if I invert the scale of euro US dollar, and then I show you the dollar index, you'll see. Let me invert. Oh, it's inverted it for everything. Okay, yeah, I see. I thought I could just invert one chart. Basically, if you invert the euro dollar, you get very close to what the dollar index is. But this is not just against the euro; it's against a basket of currencies. So what this is saying is the dollar is broadly strong. It's broadly moving up, and the dollar is a competitor asset. So there are people who look at multi-assets. So they look at bonds, currencies, cryptocurrencies, and things like gold, silver, base metals, and all that sort of stuff. So technical funds and investment funds will move in and out depending on what's hot and what's not. And so it's a competitor. So the fact that this has moved up is a competitor to Bitcoin. So now, some people would disagree with that, and that's absolutely their prerogative. But all I'm saying is that was a sharp move, and I still think that Bitcoin is in a bullish trend, but we've just got to be wary that this might pull Bitcoin down a bit more towards the breakout level, the big level that I talked about for many weeks, this 54,000 point. It could just pull it lower towards there as a buying opportunity before it continues this trend. Now, I still think we're in a major bull trend, and I do think into next year we will see much higher levels. It's just a question of what route will it take. Will it go straight up? Now, I was a bit disappointed that it didn't follow through on the upside. We broke into a new high and it just got slapped straight back down. Now, the extent of that correction we've got to work out. It might just be a short correction and then the market goes up, or it might turn into something bigger. And I'm just looking at the areas that would suggest that this could be a bigger correction, but for the moment it's reasonably well behaved. So I think at the downside, I would expect this 56,425 level to hold. If that breaks, then 5,400 is the next level. If that breaks, we're into an even bigger correction. But let's take that one step at a time. We can talk about that if we're at these lower levels next week. But as you look at this trend channel on the way up, it's quite possible that it could hit this lower trend channel and then trade up again. Now, is this a move into altcoins, or is it just a broader correction? We can see. But, Ethereum was a much smoother chart, really smooth. This was a very nice little triangular constriction that should have just gone straight up because the prior trend was up. Nice little consolidation. That should have been into new highs, hitting over 5,000. But instead, we got a breakdown, which is, again, it's not critical. It's not an trend-ending signal. But it's just a little bit of a disappointment that once it was in the high, it didn't follow through. So we're still in this trend channel. It could come down to 3,900, where I'd expect some support, and then it should bounce up, and we could see the trend continue again. So it feels like we're going to get a little bit more of a correction before it goes up, regardless. That could be a minor correction, it could be a bigger one. So we're going to see how it plays out.
Yeah, it seems like, having been in the space now for 4 years, and when the general sentiment is bullish, you start to see a lot of retail people making longs, leveraged longs. And then usually there's some kind of article that's released in Cointelegraph or something where some of these whales have connections there. And usually there's an article that comes out that then is used as the basis for fear really to liquidate a bunch of those longs and kind of play the other side and take some money that way right before it then takes off. So looking back in the charts, it's funny, right before almost every major run in Bitcoin is this strong wick down. And when Bitcoin wicks down like that, often the alts do too. And we saw that in ETH. We saw that in just about everyone. The strong wick down with no news really to create that. And then it ran. It is interesting that it correlated with the dollar strengthening and bond yields going up at the same time. So thanks for sharing those charts. But these kind of things don't surprise me anymore because I saw a lot of leverage coming into the market, a lot of people bullish, and sometimes it's like the freak out moment that happens right before to liquidate some new people or at least get them to panic sell right before it then takes off.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. So we are seeing a correction. It's shaking out some
does.
late players basically. But that doesn't mean that that's absolutely the end of the trend. It just means we could be in for a bit of a corrective ride before things go back up.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate your perspective on that. Now, I just covered Cardano with my community and why.
Yeah.
It's like, I know a lot of people have been calling it like a stable coin, jokingly calling it that. And it's funny when I hear this kind of thing because that tells me it's in a boring zone and people are like, oh, it's on life support. Oh, it's dead. And those kind of words get my attention. Like, hey, let me revisit if it's buy time. Now, I'm still really heavy on Cardano. So if I wasn't so heavy, it would be buy time for Cardano for me. And these would be my indicators. So
Right.
if we take a look at Cardano.
Yes. Let's have a look. I was just getting the order. Now, last week, I think we were waiting for this triangular constriction to break out a few weeks back, and it didn't move with the rest of the market, which was, to be fair, excuse me, to be fair, it was a little bit of a disappointment that it hadn't followed through to the upside and everything else did. So there was I think we were going to give it another week and then see if it went. Now, I think it was actually last week that this broke out and we were like, wow, that's great. It should really be moving to the upside. And then we looked at it, it'd been slapped back immediately and it's still correcting. So I don't think it's down and out. Absolutely not. I don't think that this will I don't think this will completely collapse. I think what this will do is just stay in this correction for a bit longer and then move higher. But it's definitely in a corrective phase, as you can see. What I look for is I look for strong bullish trends. They're called impulsive trends. And then this type of price action is called corrective. The way this is correcting, it's not correcting at the same rate. So look at how it moves up. When the market is bullish, it moves up very fast. When the market's out and out bearish, it moves down at the same rate. This is not moving down at the same rate. It's moving down slowly. And the rate of that is declining as well. So I just think that this will range trade, maybe move a little bit lower. And then when, as you say, to coin your phrase, when it gets really boring, then everyone will go, oh, this isn't going to move. They'll bail out, and that'll be when it'll explode higher. So at the moment, it doesn't feel like it's ready to do that quite yet. But I do think it will move up in a bullish trend, but we might have to wait just a little bit longer before that happens.
The only thing that concerns me about his price right now is that do you notice last time it totally blew through this price zone? But there is some support from the previous months back on the chart. If you still have that, I just want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have it. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of support on the way down. You've got this zone here was that's good resistance. It becomes support. To be fair, it's just popped through that slightly. The next support would be at 1.6, so it could correct down to 1.6. But this pattern here could be what we call a double top, and if it creates a double top, it would normally break it and then just go straight down. So it'd normally it'd be at 120 by now. So the fact that it went up for another move, then down again, still feels corrective. So I think that this will move into a sideways range and then start to move up again. So it could take until maybe the end of this year before it's moving into that upward trend again. But I do think even if we are in a correction in Bitcoin and Ethereum that's a bit larger than we first anticipated, it'll still be turning around by the new year anyway. So that would fit in with a broader bull market.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, can we take a quick look at Polkadot, and then we're going to look at some of the viewer picks?
Yeah, now Polkadot was a great one. This was one that we had covered a few times, I think. And maybe, and you can tell me, did this get a little bit too hot in terms of the amount of people talking about it? Because that's normally a sign when you get ready to bail out and you're putting your contrary opinion hat on, which basically means you like it when it's boring, and when it gets too excitable and everybody's saying this is the latest thing, then you start to bail out some of your positions and wait for a correction. But the trend was good. We had a constriction, it broke out. We had some really nice, sharp, trending price action with very short consolidations. It did a very similar thing right at the top here to Ethereum, where it made a very nice little constriction and it should have just gone straight up, but that failed and it's come into a larger correction. So this is okay. I mean, look, if you're
Most of the
if you're in it,
market fell during that same time. Yeah, so like almost everything in the market did, which I think was a bigger whales playing some games to shake out some weak hands, creating an amazing buying opportunity for those looking to increase their blue chips. Now, this isn't financial advice. I can't tell you what to buy. It's up to you what to buy. For me, that lower trend line, near that lower trend line, that's where I pick things up.
well, there's massive support here at 38 because that's the previous resistance. So there should be support. There's support from the trend line. Now, things can overshoot, especially when things aren't as liquid, which means that when there are a few big players that can push a market around as opposed to lots of smaller players, what you really want for a very liquid market is many, many players. And when you have a few that can push it about, sometimes you can't be as precise as you want to be about levels. But around this 36 area, if it gets down there, there's some really good support. So I would expect whoever had offloaded their positions up here will be looking to buy back on the pullback. They say, that's a decent move from 52 down to 36, given that this is still in a trend, and they probably want to rejoin it. So I think around there, even close to where we are now, is a good buy zone. Now, if it breaks this trend line, I think we'll have to reconsider. We'll be looking at a bigger correction. And then we'd have to wait for it to turn around and go back up again before we can jump in. But at the moment, we have got technical justification for buying on a pullback because there's some really good support there.
Perfect. Let's jump into some of the viewer picks now. One that I covered months and months and months and months ago is called keyTango. And it's a smaller cap project. Let's look at what's going on with its price.
keyTango, right? I mean, I like this. I don't know why I like the name. I think that's a great name. Now, I know you shouldn't buy it just because of the name, but on the basis, I mean, look, you can't have, as they say, autumn is not just one leaf falling, and you can't have a trend based on one bar either. But I like the fact that you've got broadly, rising lows. So it's making this kind of saucer pattern. Now, it's doing it over, admittedly, a very long time. And it had spiked up here and that corrected, and it's done it here again and corrected. So is this, again, part of another spike? I don't know. Will it really kick off from here? But what I can see is that this move is out of kind of kilter, or it's sticking out compared to what it's done across here. So something's definitely changed. So it's interesting that you throw it up there and the price action is doing something that's different to what it's done before. Now, when it goes, it really goes. So this isn't one where you can really turn your back and, go on holiday for a couple of weeks and say, I'll look at it when I get back. This is one that could be, much higher by tomorrow or the day after. Now, I'm not saying it will be. I'm just saying I'm looking at the signature and the way this market trades, and the way it trades. I would be wary of not monitoring it basically every day. So I think this wants to turn into an upward trend. Broadly speaking, it's just been basing out. So if it was going to collapse, it would have done it by now. It had every opportunity to go down, and it didn't. It went sideways to consolidation. The longer this consolidation, for those of you who are probably stuck, who may be still in it, the bigger the trend will be to the upside. As long as the technology is going to work, this is a good basing pattern. So the bigger the basing pattern, the bigger the following trend. So the fact that it failed here, went back again, isn't the end of the world. It just means that we will see a bigger trend when it eventually goes. So at the moment, we've only got one bar to say it's ready to go. And if I was putting a very speculative hat on, I would say I would take what's called a punt on that, which means a very small position, a little nibble, and see what happens. And if it goes down, then okay, it would be just small enough not to worry about. But if it goes up aggressively, there's some okay risk reward. Now, I'm not saying anyone should do that. I'm just saying it's not actually starting its trend, but it could be starting its trend. And if you wanted to get in early, this is early. But you could also wait for something else that's already moving and that's also a valid choice as well. So it really depends on what sort of investor and trader you are.
These are the kind of pickups I like to make. Now, it pumped when it released, like everything else, and then there's pre-sale investors that get their tokens, and it dumped like everything else that we liked during that time period, like shadows and split and AOS. And so I like that chart pattern very much, and I like the numbers it's at right now. The market cap right now is 1.15 million.
Really?
So if it went to a $50 million market cap, that's a 30x. If it went to a $150 market cap, that's like 140x from here. Now, I'll have to revisit looking at it. I remember I like the team. I think they're out of the UK, and there's some cool things that they're doing. It is a small market cap project, but during the bull run, some of these small market caps, they can eventually become a big market cap project, but they didn't raise a ton of funds in the beginning. They raised a modest amount. And so they have some goals, and sometimes these turn into much bigger deals. But even if it stays in that smaller market cap area, during a massive run, some of these run into $100 and $200 or $300 million market cap. And so from where it's at to where it could be in the coming months, that's exciting to me.
Well, that's where I doff my cap, as we say in the UK, to you and your fundamental analysis, because I wouldn't have known about that. So that's really interesting. So thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, totally risky. Speculative bet.
Well, sorry.
It's a totally risky speculative bet. So just understand what it is. If you go all in on this, it's like going all in on 32 black.
Yeah. I was going to say that, but when I first saw the chart, I was like, "Wow, that looks good." I was, immediately. So you have like what's called a System 1 and System 2. If you've ever read the book Thinking Fast and Slow, I'd suggest you read it. It's a really good book by a guy called Daniel Kahneman.
Interesting.
And when I look at the chart, you have like an instinctive view, and then often you talk yourself out of it. And it's like tapping into that instinctive view, which most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time it will be right.
Because your instinctive view when you saw this was, wow, okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I like that. Yeah. But then I looked at it and thought, well, hang on a minute. How can I justify that? It's not really moving yet.
Yeah.
But I liked it. So I just kind of talked myself out of it. But I still like it. And, my little measure for that is after the show, I'll be thinking, I've got to go back and have a look at that and see if it moves. So, that's my little filter. But great stuff. Thank you. So should we look at the next one?
Yeah, let's look at XPR next, if that's okay. We've been following this one for a while, and this was a fun. I like to follow up because it's one that you took the trade on the early days and see where it's at. Because we saw this on the breakout. You took that trade and rode it all the way up.
Yeah, and we were talking about exiting a little bit. I think around here, and it would just so happen to be fairly near the top. But I didn't exit any. So, I mean, I didn't buy much. I just bought a little bit for fun. I was like, wow, I really like the trend. But then we came back to this prior high. Now, that prior high should act as support. And it had a fairly decent bounce. I thought, wait, we're going to go off to the races again, back up to 0.05 and then break. But that was when everything was moving and everything looked like it was breaking up. And now the environment feels a little different. So it feels more like it's going to consolidate here for a bit. Now, I don't mind that as long as it stays within what's called a triangle. So we got the resistance here, the support here, resistance here, support here. Now, if that goes smaller and smaller and gets triangular, then I'll get really excited that we're ready for the next breakout. So if it breaks this low here, though, 0.026, I would not like to lose that low point because I know that was a buying point because the market's turned around. And if it breaks that, then it means that we're in for a bigger correction. Now, I think overall, this is still a decent trend. If you look at the trend rate, it was vertical. So anything that comes back to a kind of 45-degree angle is fine. It's just that, we get impatient. You buy something, you want it to go up and up and up. And sometimes that happens, but it's not realistic that everything does that. It does it in waves. So, but at the moment, it's in that potential consolidation, which is fine. And I'd like it to stay above this 0.26 level and go sideways, which I think it will do for the next couple of weeks. And then we'll build up for the next breakout. Of course, the big level is 0.05. If it takes that out, it's going to go much higher because it will have, got through all the prior resistance, which would be great. But this trend line is very shallow. The breakout trend line is very shallow. It would be coming down to all the way down to 0.015 down here. We could draw another trend line that would come in at about I would say 0.021. So it's okay for it to consolidate. I know. By the way, I'm assuming that this bar was not a correct bar. Sometimes you get like bad price data, and that just doesn't look right.
It could be one big whale dumping on a DEX, right? Or
Yeah,
on
it could
an
be.
exchange and just
Yeah.
wicks down, and then it gets bought right back up. Or,
Yeah, I mean,
whatever.
things like that are a bit strange. Like, and it's on a charting system where you're, trying to pick levels and stuff. That is like, is the data good or not? I mean, if it was a big whale, one big person, you could read it both ways, because you say if they've sold it and it's just been bought straight back up, that's a really good sign. If they sold it and it went straight down and kept going down, then it would be a bad sign. So the fact that it got bounced back from there, if it is a good candle, if that's a decent, correct trading range, then it's still positive, because it means it's reversed very quickly. But overall, the structure of that was sideways anyway, so it's still in that corrective phase, and we're just waiting for the next new trend. So I don't feel like buying any more. That's what I would say. That's how I think of it. I don't think I'm going to miss out if I don't buy some more right now. But if it started to approach this high and break through this resistance line here, the top of what would be the triangle. Let me just draw that in very quickly. So if I draw this trend line, this is my tripwire, what I call like the line that tells me things are going to start to move. So if it breaks above there, then I'd be thinking, oh, I should really get some more. And then I get excited about it. But for the moment, it's still consolidating.
Makes sense. Let's take a look at Kadena.
Okay, Kadena.
Now, this one got a lot of news for a little while and ran up tremendously, and then it just corrects. This is why we don't chase green candles, because look at exactly what follows large green candles.
Now, dare I say it? I know. Look, don't get me wrong here. The time to buy it was in the smooth trend, and let me just explain why. Because what I'm looking for, smooth trend, compression of volatility, like low volatility, bit like what Proton's doing. That's okay. It's making some form of triangle before it moves into a new high. That's why I'm saying if it takes that 0.05 out, I'm looking for a move like this, right? So this is not like this. This is different. This price action here is much more volatile, much bigger in terms of ranges. That's more indicative of what we call a reversal pattern. That's when people are bailing out of their positions as opposed to getting in. Now, that doesn't mean it can't go up, because it can do. The market can do anything. But as far as technicals goes, this is not the best pattern to see at the moment. It's looking a little bit too volatile. Now, if I put it to a 4-hour chart, we get a little bit more definition of what's happening. Now, I think this could be a head and shoulders pattern forming. Now, head and shoulders is a reversal pattern. It's usually at the end of a trend. We've seen a small head and shoulders pattern in here, and the size of the pattern indicates how much it's going to correct. It's not an absolute prediction. It's just a rule of thumb. So the bigger the pattern, the bigger the correction. So this was a relatively small head and shoulders, and we got a small correction. But I think that this is a left shoulder, this is a head, this could be the right shoulder. So what we're really looking for is for it to mirror what it's done on the left, on the right, except that this ends up in a correction, and we see a reversal of this trend up to the downside. Now, all of that is conjecture at the moment, because part of technical analysis is also discipline, and it means we need to wait for confirmation before we know that this is definitely a reversal. That confirmation comes through a break of this line, which is called the neckline. Now, if it breaks this line, then if you were trading it both long and short, and I wouldn't advise going short, for various reasons, it's a whole another session to talk about what going short is. But if it breaks that, then we would see a correction. So it would mean exiting longs and then waiting until the correction is over, and perhaps getting some much better levels to buy in. Now, having said all that, this could still end up being a bullish pattern. It could go back up to the high, come back down, go up again, and then break higher. But what I'm doing there when I say that is inventing price action. I'm saying, what if it does this and this and this and this and this, then it will be bullish. So the market's got to tell me what to do before I buy it. But at the moment, I can't justify technically buying it here because it's like a plane that's gone into like a turbulent area. I don't like what I'm seeing. Now, it doesn't mean it won't clear. It's just I don't like what I'm seeing right now. So I'd need to wait a bit longer for clarification.
In other words, yes, pass on entry positions on this because it's too risky right now. The risk versus potential reward, that equation doesn't make sense for entries at this point, if, at least from my view either, as I'm watching.
Yeah. So that's more in line with how you would look at it because you want to buy, as you say. I might get some T-shirts made up. Buy when it's boring. Cause
right, we're totally gonna coin that phrase, trademark it. Buy when it's boring. Nobody else says that. That's our phrase.
That's yours. That's yours. To be fair, that's yours.
No, by all means, make some T-shirts though. That'd be fun. Why not? Because that comes from this channel, which you've been a big part of. So.
Well, I appreciate that. But yeah, so I like that, and this is less of it being boring and more of it being sort of the other side of it. So so
I think it's going to retrace from here, but I wouldn't take that bet. I wouldn't take a short on it either. I just let it play out, and then when it looks attractive, then maybe I'd put some. But fundamentals on this are okay. It just came out of the hype cycle. It's got some correction to make. All these people bought it way back here for $1.50 and $2. We're in a general trend that's going to be bullish. This isn't boring enough that I like it. Let's take a look at DOWS. Now, this is one we followed for a long time. It got really, really cheap, and this is as much history, darn it, as this chart's going to give us. But when it came out in like March, it was really, really high at like $4 or something, and then it's retraced all the way back to here. Now it's looking really, really interesting, but we were buying this when it was boring.
Right. Yeah. So I've just switched. I've remembered that we normally look at it on this longer term. Is this right? Is this the correct one? Yeah. There we go. Okay. So wow. I mean, I see. Yeah, I remember why we looked at it on this as well because look at where it's come from. It is reversing, but it's still. If I'm able to go back to the other chart, I'm just seeing a little bit more detail. Let's see if I can get that on a 90 days, see what it gives us. It's been a bit spiky, which is what we're seeing more. Here it is on this one. See, this is a spike where the market opens at a low, trades all the way up, and then extends and then shuts that down. Now, that normally is the kind of end of what you would call the hype cycle. So when it gets a little too hot, everyone piles in, and it just gets a bit extended and it gets slapped back, as it were. And that seems to be what's happened here. It's gone up and it's come straight back down again, and it's gone into this consolidation. Now, usually that will create some form of topping pattern, and it will correct a bit more before it then goes into the next trend. But when you look at where it's come from, it really hasn't started its trend yet. I mean, there's so much more for it to do. So I would be wary of reading too much into that correction, given that it's if you look at the long-term chart, it's just merely a blip. So it's just a small blip on what it's been reversing. So I think the long-term chart looks really great. I just think in the short term, this could basically be a bit more volatile before it then moves higher. Let me just go back to that. Now, where the support is around exactly where it is now. 0.04 is a very good breakout support. So you would have bought this on a breakout into a new high, and it's come back and retested it. And if it extends a bit further, this level here at 0.37, that's another really good support point. So, it's done it. It's doing its correction. It's coming back to its relative trend line, which it got a bit extended from. So it's not like this is completely negative. I just think it needs to go sideways a bit before it starts to trend upwards once again. But I do really like that long-term chart because that shows a lot of potential.
Great. Let's take a look at Spores real quick. I like to buy when it's boring, and that price is still it's trading about 40 cents when it was at $3. So it's on a almost 90% discount, like an 86% discount from its highs of when it came out.
Is
And
this is the one? Is it?
no, I was referring to DOWS, but yeah, this is
Oh,
Freeway Token. Yeah.
oh yeah,
So I was still talking about the last one, but Freeway Token. Now I just covered this in depth in the live stream where we talked about my top 2 picks that I think can over 100x. Now there are a lot of things that can over 100x from here. I specifically picked Freeway Token to talk about, as well as another one, because they're on my mind. They're at prices that I like where they're at right now. But yeah, so I wanted your analysis on the charts on this and see what you think. This actually came to us from one of our subscribers that wanted you to look at this.
Great. Well, thank you for asking for it. And when we looked at this before, I seem to remember it was like stuck in this range and we were waiting for a breakout, and it's done the breakout. So it's done what we asked, and we needed that because it was stuck in this broader range. And if it wanted to start exploring these higher levels, that was the level to take out. Now it's come back for a retracement, which is normal. Like markets do that. They break out, then they come back to the level where they broke out from, which is exactly what it's done. But this is a new trend. So I still think this is good. Even though this might be a bit disappointing in how quickly it came back, it's still developing its trend and it's breaking out from this range. Now, I don't think it doesn't look like that this has been hyped up, as it were. So it hasn't moved enough for it to be hyped. So I think it's got more upside. So this should be the start of a new trend. It may come back to 0.01 potentially. That's some really good support there. I wouldn't want it to, but I wouldn't mind it if it did, because, as I say, there's good support in that level. But the trend is moving up now, so we should go with it.
Perfect.
Great. Now, is this? I've got some of the
Steam exchange. This came from somebody. Now, this is an exchange in Canada. Woo!
Hey, go Canada.
Yes.
So thank you for asking for this one. It's a bit tricky because this is why I was talking about that spike pattern. Well, this is a great example, like textbook, of here we go, breakout, market closes near the high, that's absolutely fine, then it goes up, it makes this big candle, and then, actually I call them bars, but so it makes this big bar, and then it shuts it down. So that shows a lot of selling pressure off the high, but importantly, it was very volatile. So, it was a really big move and it got pushed back. And that tells us that there was a bit of a hype cycle there, and that's why it's been pushed down again. So since then, it's calmed down. It's gone into a corrective phase. Now, again, the corrective phase hasn't been aggressive. It's not gone straight up and then straight down again as though it was all an anomaly and it shouldn't have been up there in the first place. It's a gentle retracement. So I think that if this is looking like a wedge formation, which needs to break through the resistance to now become bullish. Now, what do I mean by that? Now, if this was to be a topping pattern, like a double top, 1, 2, this break here would have seen it go straight down, and it hasn't done that. It's sort of just gone sideways. So I think if we draw a line there and a line here, you can see how it's constricting into a point. So we would need it to break through this upper line to become bullish. And until then, this is just in a corrective phase that could probably last a few more days, a few more weeks. But then if it breaks above here, we could get into the next bullish phase. Now, there's not a lot of data, to be fair. And that's the problem with looking at some of these charts when there's not much to go on in terms of price history. So,
CoinGecko shows a little bit more, but it doesn't go all that much farther back. It looks like it's relatively new. I didn't know there was a new exchange coming out there, coming out in Canada, which is awesome. We love that. We want a great exchange out of Canada.
Yeah, that'd be great. No, really good. So, this is great. This breakout here is really a really good starting impulsive move. This is a decent corrective move. I mean, obviously not if you're in it. You're thinking, oh, I don't want to be sitting in this market while it's doing this. But at least it hasn't just collapsed. So it's going sideways, and for me, it just needs to trip this upper line for me to get interested in buying and go. I want to go for another one of these, except bigger. And so for me, I don't mind waiting until it's taken out a resistance point. because it'll stop me from sort of buying it now. Now, if you know about the fundamentals and it's getting really cheap, that's a different story. So you could definitely pick it up cheaper if you really understand what it's about. But I have to play everything off the technicals because I'm not as smart as you guys.
Yeah, just you're balancing a lot of things that you're looking at, including all the traditional markets, and we can only do so much per person, right? And that's why we
Yeah.
have focuses and specializations, which is good.
Yes, absolutely.
I wish I knew more about the fundamentals behind this. I'll have to look into it. I do like they chose to do 100 billion token supply, which I think is a pretty smart move. And I do see that most their supply is already in circulation, so it's not like there's a lot of early investors that are going to dump on our heads. So
Interesting. Yeah.
maybe we'll keep an eye on this, and maybe it'll get more boring and make some good entry points. But somebody made a killing. They got in at, let's just call it 7.4, and they were able to sell at 30 and 40 and 45 and do really, really well. In fact, all the way up to 50. And
Yeah.
even they can still sell right now and be 2.5x at their entry position. And so, there might be some sideways trading for longer. And if I miss this one, I miss it. But it looks interesting. So thanks to
Yeah.
our viewer who suggested that one. Let's look at Spores. And Spores, we followed a lot on this. It's been very boring, and we love boring. No, nope, not this one. There are a lot of Spores.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
SPOR.
Here we go.
Spores.
Is it with an S or
It's probably
is it this one?
Spores Network.
Okay.
No, it is going to be with an S. SPO is the ticker symbol.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah.
Let's see if this is it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. This
Actually, I
is
like that
definitely
previous chart. That looked good. But
it. This is the type of chart I like to see, because even if it does experience lower lows, and it might, it is really tempting to break through that and experience yet another low.
Yeah.
I like this kind of stuff. This is when I start making pickups, and then pray little pickups, and then pray that it gets better and gets better. Let me check its market cap right now. I might have to make some more pickups. Now, I own a bunch of this already that I'm just sitting on. I'm happy with that position. I don't mind being patient with it.
Yeah. From a technical point of view, without knowing anything about the fundamentals, I can't buy this yet because it's still at the moment in a downward trend, and it's broken through its prior low from October, November. So it's not done it aggressively. It's just very gently sort of gliding down. But I need to see it at least go sideways, at least give me a technical trigger of some kind, which would be a break of a trend line or a reversal pattern of some kind. I'm looking for one of those two things. I could also accept if it was to suddenly collapse and then reverse, that would tell me that whoever's bought it has like thrown in the towel, and they don't want to buy it anymore, and so they've lost patience with it, and then it recovers. So markets do things like that, especially if you're over leveraged, which is never a good sign. If you're buying it with real money and you don't have to pay any margin on it, then I think that's a much better way to trade. Now, that's just a general comment, but that's why when a market goes down a lot, obviously leverage works in both directions. It can hurt a lot more and make you get out at the wrong time. But what's going on here is the trend is still down. Technically, it's still negative, so I can't buy it yet. But I'll be looking for a break of this trend line. Hearing what Crypto Rain's saying always makes me interested in buying some, because I know he knows so much more about the fundamentals, and I wish I could have the confidence to buy it at these levels with that information. But at the moment, I can't do that. Not based on technicals.
I was trying to pull up, see if I can pull up, because it's on PancakeSwap now. It used to only be on Uniswap, and I'd much prefer to buy it on PancakeSwap. So I will probably be making an entry later on this one. I was actually going to make one right now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's not
Brilliant.
pulling up on this computer. I use a different computer for trading and stuff. And so, yeah, I was like, oh, let me see if I'm all connected. And I'm like, nah, in just a little position. I'm going to, and I know it's going to get a little bit cheaper, but just a little position in case I happen to miss when it does bottom out. And I think it might get a little bit cheaper. One of the viewers had actually looked when some drops were, and I think they had said that a token drop was coming soon on pre-sale investment. And if so, that would make sense. Today's the 17th. And yeah, if that comes or has come, I'll have to look at when he said it was. I think he said the 18th. It might be dropping a little bit in anticipation. That might create the bottom. And yeah, I'll definitely be loading up on more on this because the project's fairly recent that it launched a couple months ago. They're starting to make, I've seen some of their deals that they're making for actual NFTs with some big licenses out of Asia. And that's their target market is the Asian video game and anime and other NFT licenses. They're the ones that are really going after that strong. So, and they've got the right connections to hit this. So I'm happy that it's gotten cheap so that I can fill my bags with more. So
Brilliant. Okay.
perfect.
I think have we got just one more to look at, or was that it? I think we've just got one more here. Was that Solana?
Yeah, let's take a look at Solana because we
Yeah.
haven't looked at that yet.
Yeah. So Solana is basically this has been a really great market. We've had a fantastic trend. Now I'm not sure if we talked about it on this channel, or whether I was talking about it on the Definity channel, but I've definitely covered it technically. And I was looking for 270 as a target, and we followed it on this run up, and it made a really nice triangle and broke out. Let me just zoom in to show you what I'm talking about here. So there was a very nice technical triangle that broke out. And sorry, I've got a screen that sort of jumps in front of the chart, which is why I kind of move stuff around, but you can't see that. It's a little small graphic of me and Crypto Rain that sometimes goes in front of the chart. But anyway, so this is a triangular constriction, which was a great breakout sign. So it broke up to the upside, moved into a trend, and we had a compression at the top of this move, which was new all-time high. So when the market is at an all-time high, you're looking at the rate at which it increases to show us whether the trend is going to be good. Now, you can look back at the prior trend and see how that's worked before. So when a market breaks into a new high, it consolidates, breaks into a new high, and it just steps higher when it's a good trend. You can see how it corrects. It corrects in small amounts. The trend rate starts to slow down, then it goes sideways, then it breaks out again. Now, Solana is definitely one of those markets that virtually everyone's been talking about. And so the hype cycle, to use Crypto Rain's expression, has been very big on this. So you're not picking it up without anybody else knowing about it. You're picking it up fairly late in the cycle. So this is why we have to be careful. Now, I like this, so I wanted it to go higher because it was a market leader, but it does also seem to be in a correction now. Now, this lower support line is one that I think will come into play. So I think it's going to come back towards this 180 level, maybe shake out a few late players, and then move back into its upward trend again. But I wanted it to extend this move quicker, and it seems to be more in a correction. So I think it will come back down. I don't think that the overall trend is over, even if it has a much bigger correction. I think this will move up with the majors. So next year, 360s is where I expect it to go to. It's just a question of whether we get a bigger correction now and a consolidation, or whether it just turns around and goes straight up. And I think given the way the broader market looks, we're going to see a correction first, and then it will move higher.
Yeah, we need people to be saying, oh, Solana on life support before it'll go higher.
Yeah.
We just covered Cardano being on life support because people are like, oh, it's dead, it's on life support. So the live stream we did earlier today was exactly on that. Looks like Malwarebytes wants to give us Black Friday sale coupon. Let me close that. Thanks for popping up their ad. They got some screen time there.
Now, do you remember when they had the network attack and then it just turned around and went straight back up again? I mean, it's really walked through some very bearish information.
It has, and there's some fundamentally some very strong things. The number of developers that are working to develop on it is huge. The number of new projects spending their own money to build on it is big. So I'm very bullish on Solana for the long term. And Raoul Paul suggested it might flip Ethereum. And he might be right on that. He might. And I think, and he also said Ethereum might flip Bitcoin. But imagine if Bitcoin will probably take off ahead of Ethereum. I think if Ethereum or ETH flips Bitcoin, it will be when Bitcoin is retracing and ETH is still pumping. But then if Solana, that will be a big deal, and we're a long way from there, but it could happen. I definitely would hold in my portfolio Solana over ETH every day of the week, because I just think ETH still has some growth. I just think Solana has more growth ahead of it. But then you're looking, if you're looking to add your position, looking for good places to add in, and I'd like to buy on retracements. That's all we have for today. I want to share with the audience, if they'll commit to the following 5 years, that makes such a big difference, because I know a lot of people are just coming into crypto and it seems like everybody makes so much money so fast. But think back to how many people are here from 2017 or even from 2013. And it's not very many, but the people that are still here, most of them have made massive gains during that time. So give yourself the best chance to commit to be here, not just for this bull market, and hopefully in the coming months, like the end of this year and early next year, I think there's some massive gains to be had. And then if you take some profits out and put them on the side, I think there's going to be a big retracement after some massive gains. And that positions you really well to then buy when it's boring. And if you'll commit to the next 5 years, I'll commit to you guys next 5 years. And so this is a great place to be. Step one, if you're wanting to join the best crypto community, join our open Telegram group down below. We will soon be making a closed group once our crypto secrets course is completely done. Second, join our Patreon. This is the very best way to interact with me, as I give the highest priority to communications to Patreon members. Our Patreon has a few different levels and unlocks access to our closed Discord group, where it's easy for you and I to interact, as well as some other very smart people in that group. Third, go back and watch some of our prior videos. This helps you understand how to think like an investor, and this doesn't come natural to us. We have to counter our emotions. It's hard to buy when it's boring. It's easy to chase green candles, and that's why 95% of people will not leave this bull market ahead. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We're going to exit with our Rainmaker Rap. We'll see y'all next time.
To the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, you buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was boring, like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out, cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic, they dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the gain show. Sticking at this wrong, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crappy. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, but time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.